So Lawrence, how does someone know if a therapist is right for them? Like they walk into a therapist's office and they meet this person for the first time.
Yes.
How does the client know if the therapist they're working with is right for them? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. I suppose I'm thinking back to my own experience as a client, going to different therapists over the last few decades, and in basic terms, I would say just trust your gut instinct. Uh, does it does the person feel right to you? Do you feel comfortable? As much as you could be anxious going to your first session with the therapist, um, yeah, just trust your gut instinct, and it could be very obvious. So I remember going to a session many years ago with a therapist for the first time. I was the client, and the therapist immediately diagnosed my problem, jumped up and started writing on a big whiteboard and explaining it to me. But that wasn't the type of help I was looking for. He didn't really kind of listen to me a whole story and kind of get a good picture of where I was at. He quickly jumped into diagnosing me, and our job as therapists isn't to diagnose somebody. That's not our job, um, necessarily. So I didn't go back to see him, because it didn't feel right to me. It wasn't. I had an inkling of the type of therapy I was looking for, even though I couldn't have probably verbalized that to someone. But I knew what I didn't like, and I knew what I did like, and that just came from experience in different therapists. So I would have went through a few therapists at the start, trying to find the right fit. So yeah, just trust your gut instinct. That's what I would say. What's your thoughts, like?
Yeah, I'd agree. Um, I'd say I often joke with clients and I say in the very first session, I say, look, I'm like pizza and most people like pizza, but some people don't like pizza and that's okay. There's lots of different types of people out there and there's lots of different types of therapists. So
Mm,
say the odds that a therapist isn't the right fit for you is quite high.
mm,
So it's probably like something like 25% or 50%
mm-hmm,
that the therapist you've walked into the office of is not the best match for you.
mm,
And that's okay
mm,
because people have different personalities and there's different theories on how to approach psychotherapy.
mm-hmm,
Like some person might be really creative and they want some sort of artistic kind of style of therapy. Some people might be better suited to very structured formal type of therapy.
yeah, yeah. Like
And then
CBT.
like CBT,
Yeah.
or some people might need to really go into the past a lot. And then that's just aside from like I have a personality and you have a personality.
Mm-hmm,
And one thing you learn in college is like you can't not be yourself. Like the therapist needs to, through of course through a professional lens, but I have to be myself when I'm a therapist. And that means that like I make it small talk in therapy as myself, or I might kind of tell a joke now and again as myself. And maybe I'll tell some sort of like parable or something like that as myself. And not everybody likes me, like out in the non-therapy world. Like
mm,
plenty of people like, but some people don't, and that's okay. And from time to time, I'll meet a client, and they mightn't like think I'm a bad person or anything. That's not what it is. But it's just my vibe isn't their vibe. Maybe I could be a therapist might be too eccentric or too conservative or too reserved or
mm,
and there's nothing wrong with that. It's
mm,
just that you don't vibe.
mm,
Your personalities clash a little bit,
mm,
and that's okay. And so that's why therapists, you should never be high pressure sales in the first session. The client should always leave with feeling empowered and say, hey, come back to me and we can talk about whether or not I'm right for you. And the therapist should make the client aware
mm,
that it's possible that we're not a great match, and that's okay. That's
mm,
that's just part of life.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, I
uh,
would. Yeah, I would
and you'd say,
agree. Yeah, I think a client from the first session should feel like they're in the kind of being offered the freedom to choose. Whether to come back or not. They, they've been probably told to give it some thought. It's okay if you decide not to come back, and not to be put under any pressure to come back. But
how many sessions would you give it, ballpark? before you.
It depends on my level of sureness or unsureness. I don't even know if they're real words, but if I'm
Yeah,
really sure that I don't like the therapist and I'm not gelling, I wouldn't waste my time and money going back for a second session.
yeah,
But equally, I could be unsure due to those nerves or anxiety, and I'll go back for a second session, and then I can discover that okay, it was just something going on in that first session, but that doesn't seem to exist now. In the second session, I actually feel okay with this person, with this therapist. So, um, yeah, you'll kind of know yourself if it's worthwhile going to a second session. But if you're unsure, go to the second session. I appreciate it might cost a few quid to go to that second session, but you're worth it, and it's worth giving it a shot, because you could go to that second session and everything is fine,
hmm,
and you could be with that therapist for a couple of years,
yeah,
doing really good work.
yeah.
So give it some time and space.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Give it a
Give it a
chance.
chance.
Give
Give
it a
it a couple of
chance.
sessions. I think maybe
Yeah.
if you hit the 3 to 5 session mark and you're still not comfortable, it's time to shop around. The only other point I would add is that there's a big difference between your therapist is not there to agree with you. That's not what therapy is about, and your therapist is not there to make you feel good by just kind of saying everything you say is right and the world is wrong.
Mm,
So there's a big difference between not vibing with someone and your therapist um like holding you accountable. Like therapy isn't all about just making you feel good. Sometimes therapy is often about your therapist giving you pushback on your ideas, your feelings, your beliefs, your actions.
mm,
It's the therapist's job to adopt a devil's advocate position regularly to help you refine your ideas.
mm,
So just expect that that's okay and that's a good thing.
mm,
You should get pushback from your therapist. That if your therapist is giving you pushback and they're not listening to you at all, of course that's bad. But there's a big difference between working with someone you don't like and just working with someone who doesn't let you off the hook.
mm,
So
mhm.
your expectation should be that therapy is work. It's that's why they call it the work. you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah, no, it is work. Yeah, it
Yeah.
is work.
So
Yeah,
therapy is going to be work, and just
yeah,
expect that it's going to be work, and that's
mm,
just par for course. But it's very different from just not someone not listening to you, not vibing with them, not trusting them, not being able to open up with
yeah.
them. Anything to add, Lawrence?
No, I think we've covered all the kind of basic elements. Yeah.
Okay. So if you hit 5 sessions and you're still not comfortable, it's time to go shop around.
Mhm.
Oh,
Good. That was the last question.
do you want to do one more question?
Can you? Let's have a look.
I
Have we
think.
got one up?
How do I know if I should? I'd like to do it because I think we got